right, come on, be live. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Rapid Results with Andrew Weiss. We have an amazing firepower guest today, Brian Tibbs. And in case you don't know who this Brian guy is, he is, after being destined for business success, he diverted his path to become a missionary, where he and his wife dedicated 16 years to building churches across 11 countries. They then developed the hacker method, allowing them to amass a multi-million-dollar net worth by age 44. Now, through the unexpected investor, Brian is committed to guiding others on the wealth-building journey with the same principles that transformed his life. Welcome to the show, Brian, and tell us, what is the biggest and best business deal you are most proud of?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm super excited to be here and just to talk about our journey a little bit, and I'm hopeful that what we talk about today is helpful for other people. That's what I want to see happen. So, the business deal that I'm the most proud of, honestly, there's a
Oh, looks like we might have lost Brian. Hopefully he comes back here soon.
purchased.
Oh, there we
Are you
go.
there?
Oh, I can see you now. Okay, you're good.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't know. Do you want me to start back over? I'm not sure where we cut off.
Yeah, you cut off. It was like an epic, like business you're most proud of, and then you cut off. So yeah, feel free to say it again.
Cliffhanger. Okay. Do you want to just start all the way over, or where do you want me to go?
Yeah. Just say the biggest, best deal you're most proud of from the top. Start over from the top.
Okay. So there's been a ton of business deals that I've done. I'm proud of a lot of them, maybe not all of them, but I'm proud of a lot of them. But I think that the thing that comes to my mind right away is I got an offer to sell a fourplex that I owned back in 2005. And I was pretty skittish about the market because prices had been going up so fast for quite a while. And so I decided to go ahead and sell, even though the plan was to keep that thing for retirement. But I went ahead and sold it, and then the market crashed, and I'm thankful that I had sold it and I had some cash. And then in 2009, market is still on fire in a bad way. It's like a dumpster fire, right? And I decided to start investing again. And there was nobody buying property. There was people saying real estate will never come back or it's going to take decades. There's people saying capitalism is over. I mean, it was a really bad time. But I was like, no, I think it's going to come back. And so I started investing. I bought some land. I built some buildings. And there's one particular stretch of 4 townhome lots that I bought that I paid $400,000 for, all said and done, built and ready to occupy. And today it's worth over 1.5 million and is kicking off about $50,000 a year in profits. So went from avoiding a real disaster and took a huge opportunity. So I'm really proud of that. And it was it was scary. I was putting a lot of money at risk, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time, and I was living overseas. But I just had faith in American real estate and went forward anyway.
That is awesome, and I love, like, that's always a great theme with great entrepreneurs, that you got to take risks in yourself. You need to invest in yourself and just kind of understand that sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, but you got to keep swinging and keep going after that. So I love that. And so going back to, I'm curious, let's kind of start from I like to talk about like the superhero journey. You know, obviously you didn't come out of the womb knowing how to invest in all these properties, essentially. And so how did you get the finesse to know how to get into real estate and investing in the first place? So tell us more about that journey.
Well, I gotta give my dad and actually my grandfather credit for that, and I talk about it in my book, which we'll get to a little bit later. But I was 16 or 17 years old when I first even heard heard the idea of a duplex or a rental house. And my dad and my grandfather were contemplating buying a duplex, and I thought they were crazy. Why would you go get a loan from the bank, let a perfect stranger move into your house? Yeah, they're going to pay you rent, but what if they don't? And what if it burns down? What if they punch a hole in the wall? What if all these what if scenarios that all of us investors we do deal with, right? I just didn't understand why you'd be willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest to the bank and take all that risk. I just didn't understand it. And they sat me down and they walked me through the process. And when I saw that their projections is they were going to triple their initial investment over a number of years, that's when I began to understand the power of it. A little bit later, after I got out of high school, I just kind of started noticing, probably because I had that in my mind, but I started noticing that almost all wealthy people either got there through real estate or are in real estate, right?
Mhm.
And so I guess I would say I started my investing journey just understanding that that was a fact. I had no idea how they got there or what they did or how they did it, but I just knew I needed to own real estate.
Very interesting. And so when it comes to starting out, it sounds like a lot of people like, I mean, are you able to still get a bank loan and invest in a duplex, or do you still need to get family, friends, investors to help you invest in things? Tell us about what that process looks like.
You mean for me personally or somebody just getting started?
Someone just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can get loans. In fact, I encourage people who are just getting started to start with a house hack, so they can live in the residence and rent out a portion of it, whether it's an ADU or a room or even just renting out space to park an RV. There's ways that you can live in your primary residence and rent it out. And absolutely, you can get a 3.5% down FHA loan on that kind of a product. And so, yeah, yes, you can. Now you can also the more capital you can put into a property, the more you're going to cash flow. The lower your returns are going to be, but it's safer, right? Less debt is safer. So if you can raise money from friends and family, that's not a bad way to go either.
Yeah, but so say that again. The more you put into a property, the higher cash flow, but the less returns. What do you mean by that?
So let's say you go to the bank and you finance. Let's say you get 100% loan. Well, in today's high cost of real estate and high interest rate environment, it's very hard to cash flow when you have a really big percentage of loan on your property. But if you could get a 50% of the value of your property loan, that loan payment is going to be a lot smaller and you're going to cash flow a lot better, right?
Mm.
And so the idea is the more money you put into a property, the higher your cash flow is going to be. But the less money you can put in, the higher your returns are going to be because even though your cash flow is squeezed, the amount of money you had to come up with is lower.
Gotcha. Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Well, I know we're both chomping at the bit too to hear about this hacker method as well, and obviously this is one of the top reasons why you're so successful, able to be here today. So let's go ahead and start diving into this hacker method. I know each letter stands for something, and so
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to start diving in. So wherever you want to start with this topic.
Sure. So yeah, this is the book, The Hacker Method, that I wrote. Came out in February, and when I was living overseas and doing the mission work, and yes, we did build churches, but we also did community development and missionary development and all this kind of stuff. We got done with that. That went through its whole cycle, and we decided that we were going to move back to the U.S. and retire from that work after 16 years. And I was 44 years old, and I remember I was sitting down with one of my friends, and they were like, they were frustrated we were leaving and asking a bunch of questions. And when he finally accepted the fact that yes, this is what we're going to do, he said, "Well, what are you going to do next?" And I was like, "Nothing." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're retiring. We're done. Um, our investments have grown and performed to the point to where we don't need to go get another. We don't need another gig, right? So I'm just going to focus on the investments and all that." And he just looked at me like dumbstruck, like, "What are you talking about? How old are you?" And then he started digging into it, and he almost like he forgot about the social taboo about talking about money, right? He said, "Well, how much money do you have? And how much are you making? And how did you do it?" And then when we got done, he goes, "Could you teach me how to do that?" And I was like, "Well, nobody's ever asked me that before, but I probably could." And
No
that's
one's
what,
asked you that until you were that far along in that
you know
journey.
what? It is amazing that I'll have employees that will come to me and ask me for a raise of $1 an hour, but they won't ask me, "Hey, would you show me how to make $1 million?" It's amazing. So,
Wow.
so yeah, I mean, I really didn't ever have anybody. Now, that wasn't my context, right? My context was helping people and developing missionaries and all that kind of stuff. So people didn't really know what was going on. We didn't talk about it. So when he said that, and I had several other conversations like that, I said, you know what, I need to, I don't even know how I did it, honestly. I need to sit down and I need to think about it. And so that's what gave rise to the hacker method. So I just kind of analyzed, what are the steps that I've taken? What are the mistakes I've made? What are the things that we've done well? And how can I package that in a way that people are going to understand? And one of the things that I noticed is that we were hacking every aspect of our lives to deal with the fact so if you took all of our W-2 earnings as missionaries and divided it into all the hours that we worked over those 16 years, we made an average of $9.20 an hour. And in the beginning it was less than that, and in the end it was better than that, but the average was $9.20 an hour. And so we had, because of that income constraint, we had to hack every possible aspect of our financial lives in order to make this work. And so that's where the word hacker came from. So then I was like, okay, well, what are the steps? How could somebody else do what we did? And it's a 5-step process, and each letter in hacker represents something. So H is hack your lifestyle. So that's what we had to do in order to get our income, or to get our expenses down and our income up, so that we could begin to make significant investments. The biggest one is house hacking. The first property I bought was a house hack. The first property I bought when we came back to the United States was a house hack. And I absolutely, and even though I've reached the multimillionaire status and I don't have to have a house hack, I still absolutely recommend it. In fact, I've talked to very successful multi-millionaires that still house hack. It's in our blood, right? And a house hack is...
oh, yeah, sorry, you were going to say what a house hack is. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. Right. So a house hack is essentially just generating revenue in one way or another on your primary residence. So the simplest version of that is to buy a duplex or a threeplex or a fourplex, where you live in one unit and you rent out the other units. That's the simplest version of it. The house hack I bought, the most recent one that I bought, was a beautiful 1938 home in the north end of Boise, Idaho, which is one of the nicest neighborhoods in the area. It has a 2,400 square foot house on the corner, and behind it, it has an ADU, an additional dwelling unit. We call it the cottage. I split that cottage into 2 units, and there's an upstairs 1 bed, 1 bath, and a downstairs studio with a bathroom. I short-term rent it. Those 2 units pay for the entire property. So I can live for free in the 2,400 1938 build, beautiful home. And you don't even know, the house is on the back of the lot. There's a fence that divides us. You don't even know there's somebody else on your property. So that is also a house hack, right?
Yeah.
There's other house hacks that you could do. You can, if you have like kind of a weird, like a long dining room or something, you can put a wall up and maybe put a door in between and an exterior door, and rent that room out. So there's lots of different ways that you can house hack. What I tell people is you can actually become a multimillionaire if the only hack that you do is you figure out how to get your entire mortgage covered by your house hack, and then take that savings that you would have spent on a mortgage, invest it, and 20 years from now, you'll be a multimillionaire just doing that.
Invest it into what? Just buying more properties and more properties?
You could go that route. I would recommend that route. I think real estate is one of the most tried and true asset classes, but you can invest in anything. If you can get a 10% return on your investment, stock market, real estate, whatever, you get a 10% return on your money, 20 years from now, you'll be a multimillionaire if you have the average mortgage in an average house in America.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
So hack your lifestyle. Yeah. So there's actually 5 different lifestyle hacks that we did. House hack is the biggest one. Next, once you've mastered your house hacks or your lifestyle hacks, the A stands for allocation budgeting. And so we've created, this is what we lived on, and this is what we recommend people strive toward, is a 50-40-10 budget. So 50% of your income is for spending on you now. 40% of your income is for investing, aggressive investing, and 10% of your income is to give it away to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And if you can figure out how to hack your lifestyle to get your expenses down, boost your income, spend only 50% and invest 40%. If you get a decent return on your investment, you can be a multimillionaire in a matter of a few years. It's very powerful how that happens. The next step is actually 2 letters. It's the C and the K. Cash is king investing. So once you've got your lifestyle hacked. You've got your allocation budget set up. You've got your 40% set aside. This is where I go into depth as to what it means to kind of change the chip in your brain from being a consumer to being an investor, to where you're constantly looking for opportunities to take that 40% bucket and turn it in, double it and triple it and keep rolling it and keep compounding it. So I go into depth on real estate investing. I talk a little bit about stock investing, but the most important part of cash is king investing is that you just get really good and really focused on investing your return, your 40% bucket, right?
Yeah.
The next letter is exponentiality. And I'm pretty sure that's not actually a word, but
It is now.
the idea is once you've gotten the discipline in the cash is king section and you are investing, now you want to start to look for ways to boost your returns. So a return is, let's just say, if you invest $100 and then you generate $10 in profits or interest or dividends or whatever. Now you have $110. Your $10 is your return, or 10% is your return. Once you've learned to invest, now's the time for you to figure out how to get really, really good at investing and go from math, like arithmetic, like addition, to multiplication. And one of the concepts I talk about is infinite returns. So let's say you invested in something 10 years ago. Let's say it's doubled in value. If you were to sell half of that investment, take your initial investment out and just leave in the profits, now you have an infinite investment, because the money that you put into it, you've taken it back out to use somewhere else. And now your profits are generating profits. Exponentiality, right? Mm-hmm. And then the final letter R is actually 4 R's. Number 1, review. Everything you do in your life, you need to review. Is it working? Is this what am I doing this right? Is it performing the way I thought it would? Is it reaching my objectives? If the answer to that is not really, then you need to revise. So you need to look at your plan, you need to revise. So I was a traditional 12-month lease apartment landlord from when I was 19 years old until 2016. And in 2016, my house flooded and I had to go somewhere else to live. And so I stumbled on Airbnb. It was the first time I'd really even used their app. And there were only 3 homes in Boise, which is where I was at the time, that had 3 bedrooms for me and my wife and my kids. And they were all over $200 a night. And after being grumpy about how expensive that was, I like froze, a deer in the headlights. I was like, how much am I getting per night for my apartments? It's like $30 a night.
Yeah.
So I reviewed and I revised and I pivoted from long-term rentals to short-term rentals, right? Mm-hmm. The third R is repeat. If what you're doing is working, just keep doing it, even if it's boring. Like people who get good at investing or who are entrepreneurial, we get distracted by shiny objects, right? And we need to resist that temptation to do something different if what we're doing originally is still working. So repeat. And then the final one is maybe the most fun, but also maybe the hardest. Reward. As people who get really good at investing, we kind of get addicted to it, and we can take it to the extreme to where we're sacrificing to invest as much as we can, and we never harvest money out of our investments. And I actually teach in the 50-40-10 budget system, if you have a sale event and you generate a bunch of profit and you get to take profits, you should take half of those profits and put it in your spending bucket and use it, enjoy it, reward yourself. Now, if you want to give somebody, well, I do suggest you give 10% of it away, but if you want to bless somebody else in your life, that's fine too. But you need to grow the skill of rewarding yourself through this process. Otherwise, you could become a miserable Scrooge type character. And what are we doing this for anyway, right? So that's the hacker method in summary.
No, I love it, and thank you so much for walking through us each letter. Like, I'm so inspired and so pumped up. Like, oh, let's go freaking do this. Cool. I want to, for the audience members out there, like I want to speak to our scared brain a little bit, and just like, Brian just got lucky with these investments. He got lucky. He sold right before the recession. And so I know the way business works though is like going back to like, obviously you got to bet yourself. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But for the people out there who are like, oh, I'm never lucky, and whenever I invest in something, I always lose the money. Can you tell us more about when investments go wrong and how to like help tell our scared brain that it's okay to still go after investments even if they go wrong. Like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I totally have heard that before. Like, oh yeah, you got lucky, you invested in Boise and you invested in Phoenix when I started investing in Boise, it was a backwater. I mean, there was no potential there. And for 15 years, I had very, very meager growth. And then finally, well, and we had the '08 crisis. So when I started investing again in 2009, um, I still felt like it was the right thing to do, but prices kept falling 2010, 11, 12, 13. So I was no genius in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. It wasn't until 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 that things started to turn around. And I think the lesson, couple of things. Real estate specifically. Now we don't know what's going to happen in the future. The trend could change, but the very, very long, you could say decades, you could say hundreds of years, you could say thousands of years of trend line is that the land, well positioned land, retains its value and performs well. That has been proven for millennia. And so if you are investing in good property that is going to be desirable by people over the long term, it should perform well. In terms of fear, I bought a house in May of 2022. May of 2022, you can look at the chart, and it was in Phoenix, Arizona. The very tippity top of the boom cycle was May of 2022. And I bought a house, and I remember for the first time in like 2 years, I didn't have any competing offers on my purchase. And that was a little spooky, right? And for a split second, I thought, should I not do this? And I was like, no, because I'm an investor. And what I do is I invest. And I know that I'm buying this property at a good price. Long story short, 6 or 7 months later, we got it appraised, got it refinanced. We built $100,000 in value by buying at the tippity top of the market. Okay. Now, we didn't do that because it went up in value. We did that because we knew what our strategy was. We created a lot of value by doing a smart remodel, and we turned it into a cash flowing asset. And so, to those who are saying, yeah, if it was 2008, I'd buy everything I could find. No, you know what? That's not true, because the people who are afraid now were the kinds of people who were afraid then because everybody was saying the world is burning down, right? And so what you've got to do, you've got to fight through that fear. Now, don't do stupid moves. Don't put yourself in a debt risky situation, but you need to learn what is your strategy, be confident in what your strategy is, and not just cocky confident, but confident in that you've got other advisors around you showing you how this can perform over time, and then take action. One of the cool things about real estate, it's very forgiving. We have inflation in this country, not just now, but we've always had inflation in this country, and inflation pushes up the value of real estate. And so even if you make a small mistake, you give it enough time, it'll probably turn out to be okay.
Interesting. You said that real estate is always forgiving. So you said because of inflation. Is that what you mean by that?
Well, inflation is the culprit. Inflation is actually a real estate investor's friend, because it pushes up the value of our assets. But with the fixed debt environment that we have in the United States, our debt stays the same. And as the dollar devalues, our mortgage payment becomes less and less significant because our rents are going up, our asset values are going up, but our mortgage payment is staying the same. So real estate tends to get more and more profitable over time.
Gotcha. And you also mentioned don't put yourself in a debt risky situation. Aren't all these situations debt risky?
Yes. I should clarify and say you need to understand. Well, first of all, you need to develop a strategy as to what is your risk tolerance. If you can't sleep at night because you've got any debt at all, that means you have a very low risk tolerance. Yeah. If you're a daredevil and you want to max it out and just see what happens, you have a high risk tolerance. You need to decide what your risk tolerance is. But I personally suggest make sure that your debt payments are not make sure that your rents can cover all of your expenses, including your debt payments, at least breaking even in that first year on anything that you might invest in real estate wise. That
Mhm.
way, at least you can cover, even if the value of the property dips down a little bit, as long as you can cover those payments without it sacrificing you and your family, then you should be able to ride the storm.
That makes sense. No, I like that. Um, and I want to give you a scenario, and hopefully this hasn't happened to any of your clients, but I think going back to like, the top thing about business is like persistence and resilience and keep
Yeah.
going. And like, because we're in capitalism, people are able to start from scratch. But just going back to like our scared brain mind, and obviously like the sky's the limit how much money we can make. But let's say someone's like, okay, I buy a duplex, I get it in 2008, for example. All of a sudden, the value of the duplex crashes. I lose all my money. I can't find any tenants. And let's say worst case scenario, you have to declare bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I mean, but going back to like, so have you talked to anyone who's gone through this and been able to bounce
Yeah.
back? I guess speak to that first, like just to help show that like the reward is much better than the risk, essentially.
Yeah. So this is something I talk about in the book actually, that I want for investors to lose once in a while. And I want to preface that it's kind of like a shocking thing to say, right? Um, if anybody ever tells you I've never lost money in the stock market, let's use that for example. I've never lost money in the stock market. There's one of three possibilities. Number one, they're just flat out lying. That's probably the most probable. Number two, they are so scared. They have positions that are underwater, but they refuse to sell them until they get back to where they're break even. And guess what? Those guys don't make any money in the stock market because they're constantly holding losers and they're refuse to sell a loser. Or number three, they're Bernie Madoff and they're manufacturing false reports, right? Those are the three
Wow.
possibilities when somebody says they've never lost in real estate as an investor. Or they bought one stock when they were young and it just worked out, right? I mean, but
Mhm.
if you're a serious investor, you will have lost money, and losing money is an extremely powerful emotion driver for us investors, and it's the best teacher. Success is a horrible teacher. Failure is an amazing teacher. And so I want people to actually lose. I don't want them to lose a lot, and I don't want them to lose often, but you need to lose a football game in order to go back to practice on Monday and fix your flaws, right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing that happens in investing. You've got to make mistakes in order to grow and become a real effective investor. And the good news is when you're starting out, you're not starting out with $1 billion fund. You're starting out with one little investment, and it will be painful and it might feel like the end of the world, but I promise you it's not. I had a buddy that in 2008 he was a builder, and he was building homes on spec in 2000. Well, it was 2006, just like everybody else, and that's what led to our inventory problem in 2006, 7, 8. And he lost everything. He went bankrupt. He had to short sell his home. He is a multimillionaire today, and I know a lot of his investing strategy was shaped during that time. He had to pivot, go do something else, and he created a very successful business outside of the building uh, realm. And in fact, wrote to me today because he saw that my book came out, and he goes, "Hey, I want to write a book about what I've done. Can you tell me who your publisher was and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff?" So
Yeah.
yeah, so I've seen it happen. Because it's the blood, or it's the mentality, or it's the drive of the individual that matters, not some loss that they had 15 years ago.
And can we key on his story? And obviously, yeah, I'm sure he's excited for his book. Happy to tell more about it. But when you go through bankruptcy, like yes, your net worth gets to zero, and it basically means you can't accept loans anymore. But how was he able to bounce back? Like you go
Yeah,
back to getting money from friends again to get his duplex and start from scratch. Like when you go through bankruptcy, how do you bounce back? I guess is the question.
yeah. So yeah, you're right. He wasn't able to get loans, but only for a time, right? That eventually that gets taken off of your credit report, your credit history. Now you still may have to fill out applications from time to time. But honestly, anybody who sees that you had to short sell your house in 2007, they know you're one of millions of people, and so it's
Hmm.
not that big of a red mark. But anyway, what he did is he went out and he found investors. He was a very respected guy. Everybody understood he got caught in the perfect storm, and so he went out to different investors and he raised money and started his own firm. to do his next gig, right? And so he didn't have to get loans for that period of time. Now he lives in a beautiful home. He's got a mortgage on it because it's been enough time that he's able to go back and the banks have no problem lending to him again.
Oh, that's so cool. And so I'm curious, like, so how many years ago was it that first person that asked you how to become rich and wealthy?
Yeah, that was in 2021. So 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
And how many people would you say you've helped with like your teachings, your coaching, your strategies to help them break out of the, I guess, financial chains per
Yeah,
se?
well, that's really hard to know for sure. We do a lot of these, interviews on podcasts, and we have a social media presence and all that. So, hundreds of people. I would say individually that I'm working with, I'd say it's in the dozens,
Mhm.
of just different people that I've either done short stints with or I'm doing ongoing things. So we have a community that's called the Unexpected Investor Community, and it is my way to give back to people in a more tangible way. The book is great, and you can learn a lot. You can kind of understand the way we did things and how I think. But in the community, it's an opportunity for interaction and growth, and we set goals and we talk about different strategies. And like tomorrow, we have a coaching call where we're talking about how to get financing when you haven't invested in property before. So that's the way that and I love that. I love that process, that community, those folks. So that's what we're doing.
No, and I love the passion in your voice, and just like it's just so funny to me too how you're like, oh wait, not everyone knows how to get rich, and not everyone's willing to ask like,
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of stigmas about talking about money, right? And
yeah.
and so and it's actually taken a while for me to get comfortable with it too. But I really do want to help people get past their own limitations that they have in their mind. And if I could do it at $9.20 an hour, anybody can do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I want to transition a little bit. Let's talk about mentorship and mentees.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you give people, or like both sides of the coin, like when they want to find a good mentor, when they want to find a good mentee? Tell us more about your approach to those things.
Yeah, and actually, the community I was mentioning a minute ago, that's what it's all about. It's all about mentorship, and we ask everybody to have a mentor and be mentored, to mentor people and be mentored.
Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of a mentor junkie now, which is kind of weird because I never really had mentors before. Certainly not in the nonprofit realm. Well, no, that's not true. I did have later in the later years. I had mentors, but I think the vast majority of my growth has come by sitting across the table of somebody who is far more successful than me, pointing out the things that I'm not doing right, or pointing out the things that I could be doing better, or pointing out different things that I could be doing. But most of the time, helping me adjust my mentality instead of thinking small, thinking bigger, or thinking more dynamically, thinking more rationally, because there's things in all of our minds that got put there somewhere for a good reason. We went through a trauma, or we saw somebody else go bankrupt in 2008 or whatever, and we have all this stuff in our head that is really keeping us from making progress. And often the only way to get past that is for somebody else that you respect that can then help you point out where you're thinking incorrectly. In terms of mentorship, what I always do first is I ask, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be and when? Is that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, next month? Where do you want to be? And then when we can establish a clear vision of where you want to go, now the rest of it's a fairly easy process. We know what we got to get to. We know where we're at. What do we got to do between now and there to get there?
No, I love that. No, thank you for that great answer. And I'm curious more about your Guatemala experience. So I know you're on a mission. Like, does everyone need to do a soul searching mission in a different country to find happiness and have all these epiphanies in life? Or tell us about what your thoughts on why people should travel, or I'm curious about that.
Yeah, Guatemala was our first country, but we were only there a year. We actually
Oh,
lived in 5 different countries, so we spent more time in Peru than anywhere else. But
oh, interesting.
um,
Yeah.
I would say certainly that is a way that you can go and develop your character and your soul, but certainly by no means is the only way. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that that's the way you go. But I talk a lot about in the book. In fact, the very last section is called "The Morality of Wealth," and I talk about what our responsibilities are as people who are building wealth, focusing on it, and having it. It's not to it's not just to live in a ridiculous house and have a ridiculously fast car. It's also to enrich the lives of the people around us that matter to us. And it's also to leave our mark on the world, leave the world in a better condition than we found it. I think that people who have mastered the skill of building wealth have a higher responsibility to take care of people who don't, and to be good stewards of this beautiful planet and this amazing human race, and even the animals and the plants. We have a responsibility to use our resources to help make the world a better place. And so, whatever way you can go about doing that, do that. You don't have to go. You don't have to go to Tibet or or Peru or anything like that to get that. Although you can, you
Yeah.
just need to find that. You need to figure out how to enable yourself or allow yourself to not be a fully selfish individual in your accumulation of wealth and your use of wealth. And whatever way you need to go to figure that out is that's an individualistic thing, probably.
No, that makes sense. And out of curiosity too, when you're visiting all these different countries, like, are you confident you can help a person in the same way who's in Peru or Guatemala as someone who's in the United States? Like, is it the exact same principles that transfer over that easily?
Yeah, I think that for sure the principles transfer. In fact, I did a workshop in Spanish for some of my old teammates that
Wow.
reached out to me. They knew the book was coming out, and it's only in English, and they were mad at me that I didn't write it in Spanish as well. Someday maybe we'll do a translation, but I went ahead and did a workshop for them just to kind of give them the basics of it. And obviously there are cultural differences, and there are societal restrictions. Like, we have federally insured bank accounts. We have the stock market that has a very, very strong track record. We have laws that protect investors. We have laws that protect landlords. So there's lots of things that we have that a lot of other countries don't have. But the principles of investing, getting a return on your investment, compounding investments, exponentiality, it's all universal.
No, I love that. So yeah, so yes, kind of something we've talked about so far, just like of house hacking, of just like budgeting, of just investing, and it seems like going back to like how did you get this confidence to be able to just keep investing, keep going after it, even I know like yeah, like you said, no one's a perfect investor, but and you wanted to call it quits, but you're like, you know what, maybe I can get better because you got encouraged about that. Tell us more about like the mindset behind all that, but what lights you up about all that?
Yeah, so I guess I was motivated by a reality that in the line of work that I chose, there was no retirement, and I worked with a man that I respected greatly, who was 15, 20 years older than me, and I saw him getting to the end of his career, and he retired, and in a vulnerable moment, he looked across the table at me and he said, "You know what? I've only got $100,000 to retire on." And I was like, "Yeah, that's not even. I mean, that might get you a down payment on a house, but that ain't gonna buy your groceries. How are you going to live?" And this guy was a competent, effective leader. I mean, he's a very accomplished individual, and I just knew that I did not want to live that life, and so I uh, set out to just to do everything I possibly could. I invest 40% of my income, grow it as well as I could, and my original projections were to retire at 52. We actually retired at 44, and our net worth was triple what I was hoping it would be, because we got really good at the discipline of setting that 40% into the investing account and then just never letting up on the gas pedal on making sure that our investments were making good returns. So that was my motivation, and I'm super thankful that we found that discipline.
Interesting. And speaking of that too, what are your thoughts on paying off credit card debt versus having mortgage debt? Like, does credit card debt need to be paid off immediately, or is it okay to keep credit card debt as long as you're making bigger investments, other things? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so in the hacker method, I do address that, and I actually say you the key to being effective at investing, or the key to be effective at building wealth, unless you can inherit your money somehow, or some other trick that you don't really have any control over. But if you want to build wealth over time, you've got to flip a switch in your mind from being a consumer, where I get this paycheck. So like, you get your paycheck and you look at your paycheck, and I remember my first paycheck from my first like legit job, where maybe it was several $100s, right? And I'm like, wow, what can I spend all this money on? And unfortunately, that's how most people live their entire lives. And what you got to do is you got to look at your paycheck, and instead of your paycheck determining what you're going to do, you look at your paycheck and say, paycheck, I'm going to tell you what to do. Half of you is spending, 40% of you is to invest, because I want that 40% to double and then triple and then quadruple and then quintuple. And I want that 40% of this paycheck today, I want that to be $1,000,000 someday. And then 10%, I'm going to make the world a better place. And if you can flip that switch in your mind, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. So what I talk about in the book is, in order to get to the point to where you can legitimately only spend 50% of your paycheck, no car loans, no credit card debt, don't pay your mortgage, get somebody else to pay your mortgage. You gotta really get very creative and get a little bit scrappy in order to get your spending to 50% of your paycheck. You could do it. I did it. And there's other people that are doing it. I've been surprised, as I have started talking about this in public, how many people are coming forward saying, hey, I'm already doing a house hack. It's covering like half of my mortgage. I wish it was covering more. I'm like, you are so far ahead of so many folks, and you are putting yourself in an amazing position. So yeah, pay off the credit. We have to look at debt as two different kinds of things. Personal debt on consumption, bad. So I'm a believer in what Dave Ramsey says about personal debt for consumption: car loans, credit card loans, furniture loans, all the different loans that you can get, department store loans. Those are going to crush you. Debt that is leveraged against assets that go up in value and pay you an income is a good thing. And that's where I diverge with Dave Ramsey. I think that we should have, well, everybody needs to build their own strategy, but we should be open to the idea of having debt leveraged against assets that go up in value and pay us an income. That's my stance on it. I go into more depth in the book.
No, I love it. And I'm definitely excited to learn more about the book and all the stories involved and all that. I think you just turned off your camera. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, I know we have a few questions left before the top of the hour. So tell us more about let's see. I guess sorry, we'll wait till the end there. But what's the next end game you're working on? Like what's like the next thing you're most excited to go after? Obviously, besides selling all these book copies to help more people, like what's the next vision for Brian?
I don't want to sell a lot of books to sell a lot of books. If I sell a lot of books, I'm going to be thrilled that there's a lot of people out there who their gears are starting to turn, or ideas are starting to click, or they're finding the passion and they're finding the energy and maybe even the permission to do what they've been dreaming about doing. How many people say, someday I'm going to XYZ? I hope that my book would push somebody out of the someday into the today and get something rolling, take action. Because every day that clicks by is another day on the other end that you are not getting to where you can be and you should be. And I'm most excited about, and the book kind of dovetails into this community that I was talking about earlier, but that's what I'm most excited about right now. I'm still investing in real estate, and I'm still growing my portfolio, and I have an investment fund that I started last year. And so it's fun to work with investors now for the first time in my life. But what really kind of floats my boat is just helping people that have said, I want to get there. I'm not sure how to get there. I need a little bit of help. Let's go. That's what's most exciting to me.
No, I love that. So yeah, with that said, tell us how we can get a hold of your book. Tell us anything else you want to offer the audience. Give us all the details.
Yeah. So the Hacker Method, the Unexpected Investor's Guide to Building Wealth, even on limited income. It doesn't have to. I know doctors who are strapped and don't have 2 nickels to rub together. Right? They just spend everything that comes in. So you don't have to be working minimum wage to run the hacker method. But in fact, if you're making $200,000 a year, it'd be a lot easier to do the hacker method than if you're making minimum wage. But
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get the book at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, target.com, walmart.com. It's on a bunch of different places. Amazon's probably the most common place people go. And when we launched it, it actually was #1 in all 3 of my categories for 4 days. And so we did well going out the door. You can find me on my website as well, theunexpectedinvestor.com. And in fact, there's a link for the book, and you can read the first few pages of the book if you just want to kind of sample it before you buy it. And I'm on social media at Unexpected Investor on all the social media platforms. So I'd love for you to come check out what we're doing there. We try to post fresh content daily, or at least every couple of days.
Perfect. And is that the best way to contact you? Is social media and website, or any other ways to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, click the little connect button in the top right corner. Just put your email address in, and then I will get back to you, or somebody from my team will get back to you. Or you can DM me on any of the social media channels as well. I love interacting with folks there too.
Perfect. And then the final question for today is, what's the one takeaway you want someone to have from our chat today?
I would say I loved the question that you asked before about fear. I think that's the #1 thing that holds people back. And if I were to say I've got a briefcase stuffed with $2 million, and you got to drive across town, and it's going to be a little bit sketchy, and you got to do this and this, and I'm not going to tell you exactly where it's at, but if you find it, you've got it. I mean, how many people would say, nah, too much hassle? And that's what we're saying right here. There is a multi-million-dollar net worth for you. And the only thing holding you back is, I like to use the reference of the monster under your bed. And I've dealt with monsters under my bed too. When I first moved back to the US, I had never bought real estate that needed a significant remodel, because there was a monster under my bed telling me you can't trust contractors. The city will Are you there?
Oh, I can see you now. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
The city will shut you down, and there's all these monsters that was keeping me from doing that. When I actually started doing it, what I found was contractors need to feed their families, and so they want to get paid, so they want to do work. The city wants their city to grow. They want housing. We're in a housing crisis. If you can provide housing, we're going to do whatever we can to help you be successful. And when you can start, when I got into the groove of doing that, my wealth started to accelerate, because now I'm creating massive value in these homes that are broken down and needed some tender loving care. And so the monster under our bed isn't there. It's usually all up in our heads. And if we can get past that, that is the key to starting the journey to become successful.
I love that. Millions of dollars are waiting for you. Yes, I love that. Well, this has been so exciting and inspiring and helpful and tangible. So thank you so much, Brian, for coming on today. We appreciate you. And everyone, make sure to re-listen to this episode again and again. I know I'm going to, because of all the valuable tips and insights. And make sure to connect with Brian, check out his book, get his hacker method, and we'll see you all next time for the next episode of Rapid Results. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew.